we're back again with our third video in the four-part series, the Retention Mini Workshop. And this video, I'm actually going to go to the computer and we're going to cover a lot of specific details. But I wanted to do a quick recap of where what we've done so far. So at this point, we've talked about retention and the difference between retention and attrition. You've calculated your retention rates from last year and set hopefully a goal for this coming year. We also talked about the difference between retention efforts and marketing efforts and how those two things are very different. Then we brainstormed 30 ideas, and Bill and I also gave you our best 30 ideas with the goal of hopefully you've come up with 10 to 20 ideas that make sense for you, for your organization, for your customers and the kids that come to your camp. So a list of 10 to 20 things that you might do this winter. And then you picked one of those items that you're going to work on right now would be your first your first retention effort for this fall season. So now we're going to go and we're going to talk at the computer about some other things. I'm going to talk about how to get started, actually, if you haven't already gotten started with your retention for this year, this one we're working on in the workshop. We're also going to talk about, I will share with you some of the tools that I use most frequently for the various things that I put together. So that's our video for today. Let's go off to the computer and I'll share with you some of the specifics. Okay, so we're ready to get started. Here's sort of where I would begin. First, start off by taking that idea and breaking it into 4 parts. So I'm using the example that we're sending an email. And so the 4 different tasks that you need to do are, first of all, create the content, whatever it is that you're going to be emailing to them, whether it's a printable or a video or an article or a link to something or whatever. So that's the content. You then need to gather the email addresses of all of those people that you want to send this to. Then actually write the email itself, and then actually sending the email. So those are sort of breaking it down into 4 different little smaller tasks. And the other thing that I like to do is I sort of give myself a time to work on each of those tasks and then stick to the time estimate. So I call that kind of time boxing it, forcing myself that if I say I'm going to create the content, whatever that might be, let's say it's a printable, I'm going to give myself, maybe I give myself 4 hours to do that part of it, but I sort of don't allow myself to go over that initial estimate of time because, you know, sometimes we get kind of hung up on trying to make things perfect when actually what you really need to do is just get it out. So then it comes to creating your content. Again, this is the fun part, and so the first thing to do is decide what kind of format or style of content you want to deliver to your parents. So maybe it's a video, maybe it's a printable, maybe it's an article that you are going to write, or maybe it's a link to an article that you found interesting. Personally, I think printable is probably a really great place to begin. If you're not yet comfortable with creating video, then a printable is a nice, simple thing. It can be just a single page, and it's a great place to begin. And then pick one and go with it. And that's because I think at the end of the day, you just need to pick something and then actually get it sent out. So I wanted to go through and tell you some of the things that I like to use when I'm creating content. So one thing that I find really useful, actually both of these, Canva and PicMonkey, are 2 online tools. They are free. It's canva.com and picmonkey.com, and they're pretty easy for just your basic lay person. I don't know anything about graphic design myself, but I use these 2 tools for different purposes, and they have different pros and cons. The other thing that I use if I'm going to do sort of, I say in quotes, graphic design on my own, I use Microsoft Publisher, and that's what you're looking at right here, this page, and I use this template. I created this template, and I just use it for everything. It makes everything really simple, and then all I have to do is write the content that goes inside it, but I used Microsoft Publisher to create what you're looking at right now. And Publisher comes with, if you have Microsoft Office Suite, the professional version, you already have Microsoft Publisher. I'm sure that there are other similar kind of publishing tools that you can get online for free.
There's also a website that you can go to actually get somebody to do your graphic design work for you, and that is fiverr.com. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's fiverr.com, as I've got there. And basically it's a place where you can find freelance graphic designers, and they have more than graphic designers. They have all different kinds of people. You can identify what it is that you need to have made, and when you look in there, you'll find all different kinds of people who are suggesting the sorts of things that they can do and a starting price of what they do and how long it might take them to, you know, finish whatever it is that you ask them to do. And so that's a great place to get really low cost graphic design. The other thing that you might do is just find out if there's anybody in your office or one of your employees who enjoys playing around with graphic design. There's plenty of people who do that sort of thing on the side, maybe at home. They just like to play around with different kinds of graphic design tools, and so maybe you have somebody actually on staff who could quickly do something for you that way. For video that I produce, which I say produce in sort of loose terms, but I record the video that you see from me as being recorded just with a camera, and I just use the microphone that's right there on board the camera. And so you can start out with something that simple. As a matter of fact, you could even just use your cell phone, and maybe either a selfie stick, or if you could get a tripod that's specifically for a cell phone that you clamp the phone into. And so video setup can be super, super easy and no additional cost. Then in editing video, I use Windows Movie Maker. That comes free with Windows. If you have a newer computer, you may have to go and download it from Windows, but it's free, and that's what I use. It's pretty self-explanatory, and as I play with it, I learn more and more, and every time I figure out new features to it. But it's pretty simple piece of software, so that's an easy way to begin in just editing videos. In terms of writing articles, really what you want to do once you've written an article, you would just put it on your website, and if you have a web designer or somebody who is your administrator of your website, and then what you're going to do is post a link to your website in your Facebook post, or send it as a link on an email that you're sending out, or a number of different ways that you can promote that article. But the point being is that the article is causing that person, and when they click through, they land on your website. So once they're done reading the article, they're on your website, and they may sort of browse around and look at some other things that you have to offer there. So that's a great way to not only give them great information in an article, but get them to your website, which is a great thing. So I'm going to actually use Pinterest to come over here and show you about printables. So let's hop over to Pinterest for just a moment, and I will show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here is Pinterest. This is my Camps Rock account, and basically, actually, let me go to, okay, so here's my Camps Rock account, and I'm going to go to the display showing my boards. Now, when you think about this, basically it is like having a bunch of cork boards, let's say, and on those cork boards you are pinning, thus the word Pinterest, you are pinning little things that go along with the theme of that cork board. So on mine, I have these different boards, and here I have printable ideas. I've got on board activities, lunch a bunch, fun food. Down here I've got something for working moms. I've got games, costumes, all kinds of stuff. So basically these are places where I have pinned these ideas. I'll show you in a minute where you actually get the ideas, but here are some ideas that I've pinned for kids printables. So here you see some printable ideas. So this is a color by number. It's an addition thing. I kind of like this one right here. This is a nature scavenger hunt. So I'm going to go back here, and I'll quickly go to the Working Moms one. You can follow my page. Again, you're going to be pinning your own things down in your own, creating your own boards. But Here are some examples of things. Here's 12 ways to calm a kid down, 10 simple time management for busy moms, some different parenting advice here. So anytime you want to go back to the home, you click this P icon, that's Pinterest's icon, and here it will bring up, and what it does is brings up ideas that might be of interest to you based on what you have pinned in the past. And so this is showing me lots and lots of information that has to do with children. Here's some craft things, some meal ideas, some printables, etc. So here I can search for printables for moms. And here you can see tons of ideas that you could get some inspiration for what you might make as a printable. So resources, here's information about routines, meals, faith, kids, finances, bedtime routine. Here's the one that's how to make printables for free using PicMonkey. That's one of the tools that I mentioned earlier. Now, one thing that you'll want to do, so I'm going to move on and look for printables for kids, but one thing you want to make sure of is that you are not stealing anybody else's idea. Okay, so what I do is I might use these sorts of things for inspiration, but you're going to create your own version of these sorts of things. You're using your own kind of creative juices, and maybe you've hired some, you have somebody in the office that can do this sort of thing, or you're going to hire out creating the printable, what have you, but you're not actually taking somebody else's printable and sending it out as though it's your own. The only time that you might do that is if you properly credit that person's website or that person's name with whatever it is that you're sending out. So if you do want to just take somebody else's printable, what you need to do is make sure that that it's very clear where you got it from, and there's a link where people can go and actually go to the website where it originated from. So in here, like I said, other ideas for kids, art activities, games, puzzles, finding something that coordinates with the theme of your camps, the types of things that you did this past summer that will remind them of you. Those would be the great kinds of things to do. So let's say, for example, you're a sports camp, maybe you're a basketball camp, then your printable might be something like helping the kids keep track of, give them a challenge to complete a certain number of free throw shots through the winter months. So maybe the printable is actually keeping track of that.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that information. In our next video, we're going to actually cover the rest of the activities that you might do this fall and winter. We're going to actually plan those into your calendar. I'm also going to be talking next video specifically about conducting a survey for parents, and I think it's just one of the most important things that you can do. You'll find it so interesting and eye-opening, and I'm going to share with you my specific tips, the things that I've learned about doing a parent survey. This year will be our fourth, and so I'll share with you that information. And once again, I hope you've enjoyed this, and can't wait to see you again in our fourth video.